Today, we're diving into one of aviation's most enduring mysteries. We're going to break down the story of Flight 19, what started as a totally routine training mission, but ended up disappearing and creating a legend that's still talked about today.
Yeah, it all comes down to this number, 27. That's 27 experienced airmen who just vanished, all on a single night off the coast of Florida. But here's the thing, this story isn't about just one incident. It's actually about two.
So that's the big question, right? It's a question that has baffled investigators for decades. How on earth does a routine training flight on a perfectly clear afternoon spiral into such a deep and lasting mystery? Well, to figure that out, we have to go back to the beginning.
To really get what went wrong, we've got to rewind the clock to the afternoon of December 5th, 1945. For the U.S. Navy, this should have been a completely normal, boring day.
Okay, so here are the facts. World War II has just ended. You've got a squadron of 5 torpedo bombers, their call sign is Flight 19, and they take off from Fort Lauderdale. Their mission? It's just a simple 3-leg navigation exercise out over the Atlantic. Seriously, this is something these pilots had done countless times before.
But just a couple of hours into this so-called routine flight, everything, and I mean everything, started to go terribly, terribly wrong. And this is the moment it all changed. The flight leader, a guy named Lieutenant Charles Taylor, radios the control tower. He sounds confused, pretty disoriented. He says both of his compasses are out and he has no idea where he is.
And right here, this is the fatal mistake. Taylor was absolutely convinced he was flying over the Florida Keys. But in reality, he was hundreds of miles off course, way out over the Bahamas. This one single error in judgment would have absolutely catastrophic consequences.
So you see, it wasn't just one thing. It was this cascade of failures. First, the leader's compasses go haywire. Now the other pilots, they're trained to follow their leader no matter what. So his mistake becomes their mistake. Then the sun starts to set, the weather turns nasty, and suddenly they can't see a thing to navigate by. Under all this pressure, Taylor ignores advice from ground control telling him to fly west. Instead, he makes the fatal decision to lead his men east, deeper and deeper into the vast open ocean. And just when you think the situation couldn't possibly get any worse, it does. The tragedy of Flight 19 was actually only the beginning of what happened that night. This was one of the last chilling messages they ever picked up from Flight 19. They were almost out of gas, totally lost in a storm, and they were preparing for the absolute worst. Their plan was to crash land into the rough seas, all at the same time, as one unit. You know, as soon as it became clear how bad this was, the Navy scrambled everything it had. Hundreds of ships and planes were immediately sent out to search for those 5 missing aircraft. And among all those rescue aircraft was a PBM Mariner seaplane. It had a crew of 13 men on board, sent right into that storm to try and find their missing comrades. But this is where the story takes its second tragic turn. See, the PBM Mariner was a real workhorse, but it had a very well-known design flaw. Fumes from its massive fuel tanks would often leak and collect inside the plane, earning it this really ominous nickname among pilots. And yeah, this is almost certainly what happened next. Just 20 minutes after it took off, the rescue plane just vanished from radar. A tanker ship that was nearby reported seeing a massive explosion light up the sky, a giant fireball, right where the Mariner should have been. The flying gas tank had lived up to its deadly reputation. So in just a few hours, the death toll had basically doubled. You have the 14 men from the original Flight 19 who were lost, and now 13 rescuers had disappeared right along with them. That's a total of 27 men, just gone. In the days that followed, one of the biggest air and sea searches in history was launched. But what they found? Well, it was maybe even more disturbing than finding the wreckage. They found nothing. Absolutely nothing. And let's just appreciate the sheer scale of this effort for a second. The search parties covered over 700,000 square kilometers of the Atlantic. That's an area bigger than the entire country of France. And after all that, this is what they found. Not a single piece of debris. No floating wreckage, no life vests, not even an oil slick on the water. It was as if 6 military aircraft and 27 men had just been plucked out of the sky. It's this complete, total lack of evidence that turned the tragic loss of Flight 19 from a military accident into this enduring, popular legend.
I mean, even the official investigation was stumped. The Navy looked at all the evidence, the radio logs, the weather reports, and their final conclusion was simply cause unknown. That official ambiguity, it just left the door wide open for all kinds of speculation.
And that vacuum of information was filled, and filled quickly. The story of the Lost Patrol, as it became known, became the absolute cornerstone case for the legend of the Bermuda Triangle, cementing its reputation as a place where ships and planes just inexplicably vanish. Which, leaves us with the exact same question they were asking back in 1945. Was this all just a tragic case of human error, made worse by bad weather and even worse luck? Or is there some other explanation for how 6 aircraft and 27 men could so completely vanish without a single trace?